Hello, and welcome to my capstone presentation for completion of the Online Learning Consortium Instructional Design Mastery Series. This video would ideally be a series of 2 to 3 videos that explain backward design. The intended audience is faculty members who are not familiar with this instructional design model. I begin my presentation with a particularly appropriate quote. In fact, it's the same quote that starts Chapter 1 of Wiggins and McTighe's book, Understanding by Design. To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you are going so that you better understand where you are now, so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. Stephen R. Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The ultimate goal in teaching a course is for students to learn the material the instructor presents. Many good teachers produce high-quality educational materials, but their students may not achieve the goal of actually learning the material. These instructors are well-intentioned, caring, and giving, but somewhere within the educational process, what they want to accomplish and how they are trying to accomplish it are becoming disconnected. There are a multitude of pedagogical theories, all of them with the goal of improving the quality of education. The purpose of this video is to introduce backward design, and in particular the first step of the backward design process model. At the end of this video, the student will be able to name the 3 steps used in backward design, explain what backward design is and why it is used, define Step 1, identifying desired results, define enduring understanding, and differentiate between goals, objectives, and outcomes. Backward design. What is it and why use it? Backward design is determining what the goal is and then figuring out how that goal is best accomplished. In other words, we start at the end and work our way backward to the beginning. This is not a new thought process in course design. Ralph Tyler, in his paper, Basic Principles of Curriculum and Instruction, first talked about the logic of the process in 1949. Educational objectives become the criteria by which materials are selected, content is outlined, instructional procedures are developed, and tests and examinations are prepared. The purpose of a statement of objectives is to indicate the kinds of changes in the student to be brought about so that instructional activities can be planned and developed in a way likely to obtain these objectives. Backward design can also be thought of in terms of a task that has been assigned. You know what it is that you're supposed to do. Now you just have to determine how to do it. Wiggins and McTighe, in their 1998 book, Understanding by Design, walk through a step-by-step process of the backward design model. Number 1, identify desired results. Number 2, determine acceptable evidence. Number 3, plan learning experience and instructions. Identify desired results, or where do you want to go? Create goals that define what it is that you want the student to learn, what you want them to come away with after the course. Determine acceptable evidence, or how we will know when we arrive. This step deals with assessments, both formative and summative. Assessments need to be developed to determine if the students are meeting the learning goals, objectives, and outcomes. Plan learning experiences and instruction, or what will we need to get us there? This step includes all lessons and resources that you will need to provide your student with for them to meet the learning goals, objectives, and outcomes. These learning experiences must prepare the student for the defined assessments. If all of these steps are in place, the course has alignment, and the student should be engaged and learning, and we have a successful backward course design. This video talks about step 1 of this 3 steps of backward design model. Identify desired results, or where do you want to go? It is at this point that we need to determine what the goals for the course are. Goals describe what it is that you want the student to learn, what you want them to come away with after this course. Questions to ask to determine your course goals are: what should the student know? What should they understand? What should they be able to do? What is the most important and useful? What would you like them to remember in 5 years? Wiggins and McTighe called this enduring understanding. Answering these questions should form the basis of how we think about learning outcomes of our course. These questions need to be given some major consideration to determine what content is the most valuable for the students. When you sit down to design a course, you are inundated with so much interesting information. How do you decide what to keep and what to cut? Wiggins and McTighe provide us with a model to help categorize all that information. Worth being familiar with. This is the information that you find really interesting, but it does not add value or help what you accomplish your desired goals. Important to know and do. This is one step up from worth being familiar with. These are pieces of information that are truly valuable, but that don't actively map to one of our goals. Enduring understanding. This is all the information that is needed for the student to meet the goals of the course. It is in this step of the process, after the goals are determined, that we write the learning objectives and the learning outcomes. These 3 terms are often used interchangeably. However, these terms can be incredibly useful individually and in alignment with each other. As you can see from the pyramid provided by DePaul University, goals are the broadest and outcomes are the most focused. Learning goals are a broad definition of the student competency the course is designed to achieve. Goals can work across the curriculum. Learning objectives define how the instructor will cover the material that will meet the course goals. They signify future or intended learning. They should use measurable verbs to define them. Bloom's taxonomy is a good source for these measurable verbs. Learning outcomes are a description of what the student must be able to do at the end of the course. They are the most specific and are tied to student learning. They also use measurable verbs to assess an observable action. Again, refer to Bloom's for measurable verbs. A couple of examples of goals, objectives, and outcomes are shown on this page. Once the goals, objectives, and outcomes are defined for a course, we have identified our desired results and we know where we want to go. It's now time to move on to the next 2 steps of the backward design process. But those are topics for another video. To review, backward design is important because it gives us a target to shoot for when designing a course. Once that target is defined, we can determine how we will know when it is reached and what path we need to take to get there. Step 1 of the backward design process is where the goals, objectives, and outcomes for the course are created. Take a moment, or what do you think? Although backward design has its proponents, it also has those for whom it causes concern. Some concerns are: this model places too heavy a focus on the result at the expense of the learning journey or experience. There are risks of incorrectly identifying which knowledge is essential for students to understand. The backward design process can be time-consuming to learn and in practice. What do you think? Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this overview of backward design, identifying the desired results.